Good evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m. I'm going to call the Finance Committee meeting to order. No? Okay. That's Bob making sure I'm doing it right. Bob is on vacation, so I'm going to muster our way through this agenda. So here we go. First off, temporary resolution 2524. A resolution to amend the 3 Mill Street Improvement Fund 2009 expense budget and amend the certificate of appropriations with the county auditor. Coming through finance, which is me. And Tim or Tricia, you want to talk about this one?
I can. On this piece, I've asked Mr. Dietz to lower his expense budget because they got some carryover purchase orders at the year end that was unanticipated by me when I was checking all the accounts. So now he's a little bit over budgeted. So I've asked him to lower his budget.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions on that? Seeing none, I'm the sponsor. Mr. Ailes, be my second?
Yes.
And 3 readings is okay? Okay. All right, temporary resolution 2624, a resolution approving the renewal application for placement of farmland in an agricultural district pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, section 929.02, and declare an emergency. Coming through the Law Committee, Mr. Nyheiser.
Yeah. Stephanie, would you be willing to speak to this?
Yes, sir, no problem. Thank you. So the Scholl family farms on the east side of town, south and east, and approximately 5 years ago, they had filed an application to have their cropland put into an agricultural district. City Council approved that then, and so they're required to renew every 5 years. The agricultural district provides some benefits for them, mainly CAUV value, so the current agricultural use value, which is a significant tax break on the property tax for that property, but also it protects them from some nuisance filings. If the city were to try and take it by eminent domain, it would have to go through an extra step, but really it doesn't affect anything with regard to the property's development, sale, anything like that. So they're just asking that we agree to see that renewed, and so that's what's before you this evening.
All right, what's your pleasure here?
2 readings.
And Mr. Bizjack, your second?
Yes.
Okay. Temporary resolution 2724, resolution authorizing the service safety director to settle a claim for property damage with AEP. Coming through service, Mr. Ailes.
Anyone from the gas department?
I can take care of that, sir, if you'd
Okay.
like. Yeah, thank you. So back in September, AEP was trying to replace a pole out on East Main Street. They were digging in the right-of-way, and they hit a gas line. Lancaster Gas had to respond, and they had exactly $4,267.12 in damages, and AEP is now willing to settle that claim, but in exchange, they're asking that we agree to not engage in any further legal action. I have verified with Kurt Waite that amount pays for the entire amount that the city suffered in terms of damages. So that's labor, materials, overtime, all of that. And he indicated that it was. So it's my recommendation that we go ahead and accept that and sign off on that settlement. And that's why this piece is before you this evening.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yep.
Just to let you know, Kurt Waite wanted to be here this evening, but he was on vacation and his flight got canceled. So they're currently trying to get their family back from vacation, so that is why he is not here this evening.
Sounds good.
I would also add that I was walking by when this was going on. I live right over the hill from where it happened, and there were some people scurrying. It was a major gas line, I think, and they handled it really well, so.
Perfect.
I'm gonna ask Sis Ben and Elena to be my second, please.
Suspension with Mrs. Hoop. Any questions on that? No? All right, temporary resolution 2824, resolution authorizing the service safety director to accept an H2 Ohio equipment grant and to execute contracts as required. Coming through water pollution control, Mr. Wing.
Yes, actually, I can speak to this one. As you mentioned, it is allows the state to enter into a grant from H2 Ohio. The amount is $17,000, $17,363 to purchase flow meters, helps verify usage for large customers, and monitor for water loss. And I'm going to request 2 ratings on that so they can apply for that in the February beginning of March.
Any questions on that? Seeing none, we'll move on. Temporary Resolution 2924, a resolution to amend the certificate with the county auditor, appropriate from the unencumbered balance, increase receipts, and complete a fund transfer in wastewater 6004 and in the wastewater utility reserve 6029, also through water. Mr. Wing.
Yeah. Would Denise or Mike be able to speak to this?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of council. This is an annual resolution that's a part of the bond covenant we have. So any monies that we have above and beyond our operation, maintenance, and replacement costs, we move over into the wastewater utility reserve fund. And then that money is used for capital projects that Denise and I work on throughout the year, whether it's sewer lining projects, extensions, whatever. It allows us to pay cash for some projects rather than continue borrowing. So this year, we finished last year with $2.9 million more than we spent. So we'll move that over into this fund as we do annually, and then that'll allow us to, again, do those capital improvement pay as we go to do those CIP projects.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Mr. Wing?
Yes, we will have that read 3 times.
Okay. And next one, temporary resolution 3024, resolution to increase receipts, appropriate from the unencumbered balance, and amend the certificate with the county auditor and the wastewater replacement and improvement fund 6023. Mr. Wing.
Yes.
I'm glad those are in order. This is something we do annually. However, this is the first year that we've had to do legislation. Usually I budget the 240 out of the 6004, move it with a memo over into the water R&I, the 6023 fund. I guess the county auditor prefers, recommends, requires that we do it this way moving forward to keep all the records square. So I'll be good if this goes 3 readings. I don't have anything major coming up. So this can go the full 3 readings and it shouldn't cause any issues.
Any questions? Good. You have Ms. Teener as your second.
Yes.
All right. Temporary resolution 3124, resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and amend the certificate with the county auditor and the general fund 1001, coming through finance. Auditor Nettles.
Yes, this is, we all received our lovely real estate tax bills in the mail, and there was an increase in the Hunters Run Conservatory District by 15%, which was the major portion of it that I wasn't anticipating that it was going to increase for that. So I failed to budget for that increase, so this is just appropriating so we can make sure to get the tax bills paid.
All right. 3 readings is fine.
Fine, yeah? 3, yes, 3 readings.
Okay. All right, that's come through for finance, so Preston, you'll be a second. All right, temporary resolution 3224, resolution to increase estimated revenue in Fund 6027, appropriate from the unencumbered balance and amend the certificate of other sources and appropriations with the county auditor and the water utility reserve funds 6027, coming through water pollution control. Mr. Wing.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can speak to this one. This is for the North Water Treatment Plant currently under construction. The city actually has to pay for the engineering services first and up front, and then can later on be reimbursed by the Ohio Water Development Authority. And this piece is the appropriation for that.
All right. Any questions? Seeing none, so 2 readings.
Yes, we need to do 2 readings on that, yes.
And Mr. Ailes is your second.
Mhm.
Okay. 3324, resolution authorizing the issuance of a then and now certificate for the Lancaster Department of Transportation to pay Lancaster utilities and declare an emergency, coming through Public Works. Ms. Teener.
Well, you go ahead.
Mr. Dietz.
When we were looking at carryovers for our utilities fund from last year, I was looking at December, looking to cover December, so I carried over a little over $3,700. December was actually a little over $3,500, but we got our January bill in February, and 5 of those billing days were in December, which puts us kind of in 23 money, so didn't budget for that extra month, so need a then and now to cover it, because Sherry sent me a bill for just over $3,200, so if we go 1 reading so we can get her paid, that'd be great.
So it was just more than what you budgeted for, and it was.
It just, I
that's it.
needed to carry over an extra month,
Okay,
didn't think about it.
and suspension, and then Mr. Luckenberg is my second.
Okay. Any questions? Okay.
Oh, sorry.
You're good. Temporary Resolution 3424, a resolution to create a new fund for State of Ohio Community Development Block Grant CARES Act funds, 2085, and to set up revenue and expense accounts, coming through finance. Ms. Berge.
Good evening. This is, well, actually, you want to go ahead and speak to this first?
Yeah, this is the legislation that is to set up the new fund that is required by the grant that was applied for with Permanent Resolution 3123. It's just requiring to set up a new fund.
And we're asking for suspension in 1 reading so that we can process these grants to the nonprofits sooner rather than later.
Okay. Any questions? And on the notes here, it's $336,600, and for everyone's enjoyment, there's no matching city funds.
Correct.
Okay. All right, so I'll be asking for suspension. Mr. Ailes? Yes. Second? All right, temporary resolution 3524, a resolution to increase receipts, appropriate from the unencumbered balance, and amend the certificate of other sources and appropriations with the county auditor and the CDBG CV State of Ohio CARES Act Fund 2085. I don't know how you read this stuff on a daily basis. All right, sorry.
This is just setting the revenue budget and the expense budget per the grant agreement and with the amount of $336,600 that was in the grant agreement.
Okay.
And would like suspension since we're, so she can facilitate the grant payments.
Everybody good with that? And Mr. Ailes, second on that one as well?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. Temporary Resolution 3624, a resolution authorizing the mayor on behalf of the city of Lancaster, Ohio, to vote on behalf of the city in the Endo International Reorganization bankruptcy case and to declare an emergency, coming through finance with Law Director Hall. Willing to speak to that?
Yes, sir. Thank you. So, I think it was last Monday, the city received a communication from the bankruptcy court in the Southern District of New York. Endo International Pharmaceutical Company had declared bankruptcy, and they're working through the process of a reorganization, Chapter 11, in both Ireland and the United States, due to about, I think it was $8.4 or $8.8 billion worth of judgments against them for opioid claims. 8.8, 8.4, you know, what's the difference when it's billions, right? But the proposed reorganization came with a ballot and the opportunity for the city to participate in that claim. Endo International only manufactured Percocet for the period that they were a manufacturer and wholesaler of opioids. So it's a very small part of the market overall. But if we went ahead and submitted the ballot with an acceptance of the term that we would not sue them independently of the bankruptcy reorganization, they indicated we would get 4 times what we would originally have been able to get out of the settlement. The settlement's going to be paid into the One Ohio Fund, where Ohio's other opioid settlement claims went into, and distributed from there. We don't know how many people are going to participate, so we don't know how much money we'll get, obviously. But it seemed like a good opportunity because, as I was joking earlier, nobody's going to pay me to pursue an independent claim against Indo International in Ireland or, New York for that matter. So it seemed like a good idea to go ahead and participate when this opportunity came up. But the vote is, I believe, next Thursday, and so we needed to get it before you with 1 reading for that purpose.
Thank you. Any questions? No? So I'll be asking for suspension. Mr. Ehlers, second. Okay, no new ordinances this evening to discuss. And then we're on to departmental updates.
Good evening. So I submitted a request for legislation for a grant proposal, and I don't see it on the legislation tonight. So we must have gotten our signals crossed, but this is for the RAISE grant for the East Side Industrial Connector. We discussed it at the Economic Development Committee meeting. The request for legislation was approved by Service Safety Director Woody and by Auditor Nettles and by Councilwoman Hoop. So we asked for 2 readings, so I'll make sure that it gets on your agenda for the next council meeting. The application is due February 28th. We were asking for 2 readings to make it in time for the grant deadline.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't know when it was submitted, but I'm going to go back through and look and see if I can't find it right now.
Well, I know, yeah, I know we talked about it. I was in that meeting. I know we talked about it, so get it on for next time. I'm sure Elena won't mind asking for suspension.
It would have been a first reading tonight anyway, so just bringing that to your attention.
Yep, no worries. It did not, the email didn't come to me, so I didn't know that it existed. I'm not in the list of people there, so I apologize, but we'll have it ready for next.
Yeah, okay, great.
Next
We'll
meeting.
get that straightened out for next time. Thank you.
Anybody else with updates? Chief Snyder was at the Super Bowl last night, right? So he's not here for an update?
I actually have one if nobody else does.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Was that a yes?
Yes,
I didn't know
yes.
if you were
I wanted
still
to get
laughing at
the-
your own joke, sir? Or...
Yeah. Absolutely.
Moving on to business now.
Everyone knows what I was talking about.
Hopefully everybody saw, Lancaster Codified Ordinance requires me to publish an annual report by January 31st of every year. And so you all got that on January 30th. Nothing like wait until the last minute, but it did get done. I went over it with the law committee at our meeting on February 5th. And I just wanted to let everybody know that if you have any questions with regard to that, I'm more than happy to answer those. And then one other thing, in that annual report, my civil litigation and claims report was referenced, and that's the report that is just for City Council's eyes only. It is confidential and privileged legal information between attorney and client. And so what we typically do is I bring that with me, and then I pass it around. Everybody reviews it while they, are listening to everything else going on. If anybody has any questions, they're more than welcome to ask me off the record. But once you have had the opportunity to read, if you could sign on the second page to indicate that you have had the opportunity to see all of this information, I would appreciate it. So just that to pass around for everybody. Thank you.
Stephanie, I apologize. I Told you I would do that at the beginning and I forgot.
No worries, that's
All right.
okay. I can bring it back at the next meeting. If everybody doesn't get, all the way through, I'll just bring it back for the next meeting so everybody has an opportunity.
Okay. Any other department updates? Seeing none, tonight's meeting prep with President Porter.
Thank you, Councilmember Schoonover. Tonight, we have a public hearing on, is it resolution or ordinance? Ordinance 524, and that will take place during the regular meeting. Temporary ordinance 824 will be having a public hearing on that matter on March 11th. I believe there is somebody here this evening, Mr. Vale, who would like to speak to this ordinance and provide some information.
So Ms. Hall asked me to come and give you some background on this request for zoning change. The property is at 205 Water Street. It is on the easternmost boundary of the Central Business District along South High Street. We have UPS to the north. We have a laydown yard for a construction company to the east in an IH district, or an advanced manufacturing district. We have some residential to the south, as well as a service industrial parcel as well, and then to the west is all Central Business District. So this property has been zoned Central Business District for several years. The new zoning code does not currently allow for automobile type uses in the Central Business District. Now, we have properties in the CBD that are auto oriented, and they've been there for years and they're grandfathered in. Mr. Singer applied for a zoning clearance in which it was denied, and he requested to apply for a use variance. So he was allowed to do that. The Board of Zoning Appeals approved that use variance for an automobile type use. Mr. Singer was, the city at the time, since I represent the city, did not support that use because of the type use it is and being in the Central Business District and not allowed according to the zoning code. In the rezoning request, if the zoning request is denied, if it's not allowed, then that use variance will stand. That means that other businesses can come in, apply for zoning. We would send them to BZA. BZA has set the precedence by allowing this use variance. If the zoning is approved to service industrial, then by doing so, it's going to nullify that use variance. We won't need it. And therefore, other people coming in, possibly applying for an automobile use in the Central Business District, would have to go to BZA, and we wouldn't have any reason to approve it because the precedents have been removed by the rezoning being approved. That's all I got.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Any questions?
I do, actually.
Yes.
So this is not in the historic district whatsoever?
No.
It is totally outside of that, so
Yes.
there's nothing, okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council members at this time? Keeping in mind, we have a public hearing on March 11th. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yep.
Also, as part of meeting prep this evening, we have temporary ordinance 1024, and I believe the Economic Development Director is here to speak to that ordinance.
Hello. I wanted to talk to you tonight a little bit about the transfer of the land that we've been talking about for the workforce housing project off Edie Road. I know there's been a lot of discussion about how the city came to own that property. And so I wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit about the value of that property. If the development proceeds with, actually, let me rephrase that, the value of this development, not so much the value of the property, but the value of the development. So if development proceeds with construction, the wastewater department stands to earn more in income than the cost the amount that they spent to purchase that property. I want to tell you that the wastewater department will earn 2 one-time fees, including a tap fee, which is $1,900, and a capacity fee, which is $192,000. So those two alone, the capacity fee alone, is $110,000 over the cost that wastewater used to purchase the acreage that the developer is looking to acquire. The annual wastewater capacity consumption has been estimated at about 91,000 per year. So that'll be something that gets charged every single year as opposed to these one-time fees. And since we're talking about water and wastewater, I'll tell you about the water department will also earn 2 one-time fees, a tap fee of $8,000 and a capacity fee of $118,000. So those are pretty hefty one-time fees. And then we were able to estimate the consumption of water is about $81,000 annually. So this development, it's going to pay back in dividends if we put it to use, if we build this facility. So not only do we see how wastewater and the water department are going to recoup those dollars and plus some, a lot more than just some, but we're also going to provide 144 units of brand new housing to serve the workforce, to support our local employers, and to continue the efforts to upskill individuals at the Fairfield County Workforce Center, which is actually quite close to this property. The tenants of this property will be contributing to the city with up to $164,000 annually in income tax. So we were able to calculate that quite easily since we know what the max income is for each of those types of units, and so that's $164,000 annually. So all in all, the city is going to receive a total of $333,000 in one-time fees. And it's estimated the consumption, the income tax will be about $337,000 annually. So, in general, development should be something that is a partnership between a community and a developer. We desperately need housing. We desperately need housing on all levels. And this workforce housing is really going to directly support our workforce as well as our employers. And of course, the efforts that are taking place at the Workforce Center in Fairfield, at the Fairfield County Workforce Center. And actually, I meant to invite you all, but I know I talked to a lot of you guys, and we've talked a little bit about the Workforce Center, and I want to make sure that we get you guys in there. So I'm going to send an email tomorrow about some dates of when we could go take a tour, because it's a really impressive place. Governor DeWine actually earmarked about $4 million to go to the facility to make improvements, and within the next couple of years, $10 million will have been invested in that Workforce Center to upskill our seniors in high school as well as our adults, and to support our local businesses. So just wanted to kind of talk about the value of this project with you guys.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Can I add something pretty please?
Sure.
Yeah, I handed out an Ohio Revised Code section for everybody's perusal earlier, 4582.121. And the auditor had actually asked previously if the legislative authority, city council, was allowed to transfer property to the port for $1. And that code section is the specific code section that allows it. She asked me for a legal opinion, which I will get to her eventually. But the question brings up a lot of other questions, merger doctrine and bundle of sticks and stuff that we learned in first-year law school. So I'm having to dig down to bring some of that back up. But I did just want to let everybody know that's why I provided that Ohio Revised Code section to you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I heard about the bundle of the sticks today, so I can repeat it for you guys.
Okay, thank you very much. Additionally, on meeting prep this evening, I believe there is an award that's being presented. Is that correct, Director Woody?
That is correct.
Okay, if we could do that now.
Good evening.
And if you just introduce yourself so we have it.
I'm going to. So hi, thank you so much for letting me come and present this wonderful award to Lancaster Fairfield Public Transit. My name is Barbara Rhodes. I am the CEO of the Ohio Transit Risk Pool. We are the property casualty insurer of public transit in Ohio. Our largest member has about 350 vehicles. Our smallest member has about 10. We run in total about 50 million miles a year. Lancaster Fairfield makes up about 500,000 of that. It's a nice size, small transit. Very happy to work with them. We do also insure about $1.5 billion in property values around the state of Ohio. We service about 5.5 million people, which is just about 50% of the total population of the state. We don't have Cleveland and Columbus in our pool. They're both fully self-insured, but our largest member, Cincinnati, brings a lot of miles to the table as well. So we do all the risk management. We do all of the driver training. We do all of the license monitoring, drug and alcohol. We give them all the assistance they need, from everything from help from filing a grant these days to whatever it is, writing policies that are public transit, to coming in and doing retrains, doing wheelchair securements, bus evacuation, train the trainer trainings. We have a large suite, and I'm really pleased to say that your public transit has fully engaged in all of our programs. They come to the meetings. Thank you to Chaslin Carter for all of the assistance that she has given us on our board. She took the time to learn what is a public entity risk pool. Very grateful to her for everything that she has done. So as part of our recognizing your very safe operators and all of the public transit operators around the state of Ohio, every year we give an award to the lowest cost per mile, per 100 miles for risk. And so the plaque you'll see says 2022. We awarded it at the end of 23. So it took us a little while to get here in 24 to present it, but happy to be here to do that. So didn't seem really fair that we would put Lancaster Fairfield against such a large transit, the large transit. So there's 3 divisions, and in your division, it's the under 1 million mile division. So the people that you have been competing with are Delaware Area Transit Authority, Licking County Transit Board, Ashland Public Transit, and Allen County Regional Transit Authority. So from that, not only did Lancaster Fairfield have the lowest cost at 14 cents per 100 miles, wow, for their division, they had the lowest cost for the entire pool. So congratulations to you. We are super thankful. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Chaslin, did you want to say anything?
Yes, thank you, Barbara, so much. Obviously, public transit safety is our everyday concern. We start from day one in our interview process. We go over how important safety is, how it has to be our #1 priority. We're transporting the public, so obviously this has to be our day in, day out concern. That goes through all levels of our agency, but we have amazing drivers, and this just shows, you know, how much they care about their job and our community. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and do you want to give us a blurb for the I Love Transit Week? Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
So this week is Everybody Loves Transit Week, and the goal of this week is just to bring public awareness to how important transit is in our communities. OPTA, Ohio Public Transit Association, does some little a state legislator day every year, and that gives public transit agencies an opportunity to go meet with their legislators, because obviously their support is very important to keeping public transit open. So we appreciate everyone wearing their pins and just kind of celebrating this week.
Thank you and
Thank you.
congratulations. And that's all I had in this evening's meeting prep.
No, any other items for finance? Anyone? No? We are going to adjourn at 6:35. Can I get a motion, I guess?
Motion
Thank
to
you.
adjourn.
Yes,
Second that.
we're adjourned.
Lancaster City Council will convene at 6:45.
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our two locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Taylor with Habitat for Humanity of Southeast Ohio. Here at Habitat for Humanity, our mission is simple. We bring the community together to build strength, stability, and self-reliance through shelter. Achieving this mission is made possible with the support of generous local partners like the Buckeye Cares program. That means Buckeye will make a donation with every vehicle sold this month. From all of us at Habitat for Humanity, we say thank you, Buckeye, for once again offering your generous support.
please join me in a moment of prayer. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I call this meeting of Lancaster City Council to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers. Here. Mr. Ailes.
Here.
Mr. Bizcheck.
Here.
Mrs. Hoop.
Here.
Mr. Luchtenberg.
Here.
Mr. Nyheiser.
Here.
Mr. Schoonover.
Here.
Ms. Teener.
Here.
Mr. Wing.
Here.
Mr. Wolfinger.
Let the record reflect that 9 members of City Council are here. I would entertain a motion to excuse Councilmember Wolfinger.
Mr. President, I'll make that motion. We excuse Mr. Wolfinger.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to excuse Councilmember Wolfinger. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. We'll now have reading and disposal of the journal.
Series of emails regarding electronic devices for council members between President Porter and city leaders. Email dated January 17th, 2024 regarding permanent ordinance 324 from Ms. Teener. Series of emails regarding the January 22nd, 2024 Finance Committee meeting agenda and minutes submitted by Mr. Wolfinger. Series of emails regarding an upcoming Ohio Municipal League seminar for new council members from President Porter. Email dated January 24th, 2024 regarding the 2023 annual report of seized monies and/or drug fine deposits received from Chief Snyder. Email dated January 24th, 2024 regarding the upcoming Water Pollution Control Committee meeting agenda submitted by Mr. Wing. Email dated January 30th, 2024 regarding the Law Director's annual report for 2023 received from Teresa Sandy. Series of emails regarding presentations to council from President Porter. Series of emails regarding the Economic Development Committee meeting minutes submitted by Mrs. Hoop. Series of emails regarding the upcoming Law Committee meeting agenda submitted by Law Director Hall. Email dated February 2nd, 2024 with the January 2024 Income Tax Department Collections Report from the Tax Commissioner, Amy Hamilton. Email dated February 8th, 2024 regarding the Law Committee meeting minutes submitted by Mr. Nyheiser. Email dated February 9th, 2024 regarding the Code Enforcement and Zoning Committee meeting agenda submitted by Mr. Ehlers. Email dated February 9th, 2024 regarding temporary resolution 2724 submitted by Mr. Ailes. Email dated February 9th, 2024 regarding the upcoming Finance Committee meeting agenda submitted by Mr. Wolfinger. Series of emails regarding the February 2nd Safety Committee meeting agenda and minutes submitted by Mr. Bizcheck and Ms. Teener. Email dated February 11th, 2024 regarding the Water Pollution Control Committee meeting minutes submitted by Mr. Wing.
Do we have a motion to accept the journal?
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the journal.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the journal. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Reports of city officials.
I just read the reports of city commissioners instead of the journal.
Okay. So we let the record reflect that we've accepted the reports of city officials. Could we now read and dispose of the journal?
We have the regular meeting minutes dated January 22nd, 2024 for city council.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the journal.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the journal. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Thank you. So we'll just let the record reflect that we did that out of order. Do we have any more? Do we have any communications?
Yes. Return letter for publication hearing dated January 18th, 2024 regarding temporary ordinance 524. Email dated January 22nd, 2024 regarding the 2023 and 2024 list of officials from Jen Boker, the Financial Disclosure Coordinator with the Ohio Ethics Commission. Email dated January 22nd, 2024 regarding a letter sent to the city auditor related to the Water System Improvement Notes, Series 2024 from Pamela Franks of Squire Patton Boggs. Email dated January 24th, 2024 regarding the notice to property owners for temporary ordinance 824 submitted by Dan Singer.
email dated January 31st, 2024, regarding the statute requirements as related to the property annexation, which is the subject of temporary ordinance 524 from David Hodge of Underhill and Hodge LLC. Certified filing copy received February 5th, 2024, regarding a resolution to approve an expedited Type 2 annexation of 45.1 plus or minus acres from the Fairfield County Commissioners. Letter received February 6, 2024, regarding the 2024 newly elected council training seminars from the Ohio Municipal League. Email dated February 7, 2024, regarding the public hearing date for temporary ordinance 524, submitted by David Hodge of Underhill and Hodge LLC. Return letter for publication hearing dated February 7, 2024, regarding temporary ordinance 524.
Can I have a motion to receive and file the communications?
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file those communications.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the communications. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Special presentation and awards. This evening, we're going to have something new that we're going to be doing going forward. It will typically be on the second meeting of the month, but we're going to have an in-focus departmental update. Tonight's will be from code enforcement. So I do know that everybody has their presentation packet with them. And this is an opportunity for our departments to give us some updates about things that are going on in their department and for us to ask any brief questions that we might have about the presentation. So we welcome our folks from code enforcement.
Hi, I'm Erica Todd. I'm the Director of Code Enforcement. Code Enforcement started in 1999 with Sean Fowler. He was the only code enforcement officer for years. They then decided that a part-time person would be beneficial. Since then, we've grown to, there's 2 full-time code enforcement officers, 2 part-time code enforcement officers, and then Mayor's admin is kind enough to send out our notices for us and help us answer phone calls. Just a little bit about how code enforcement works. We receive complaints either online or from the telephone. Every violation, every inspection gets entered, whether we know for a fact that we've been out there, we enter it, we go check. If there is a violation, once we get out there, then a violation notice is sent to the property owner, and if it's a rental, we send it to the resident as well so that both are made aware of what's going on. We have to give them a rectify time, which is generally 5 to 30 days. We have to give them a reasonable amount of time, unless it is an imminent danger, then it can be immediately. Once the violation notices go out, we do follow-up. Follow-up, sometimes it's wonderful when you go out there and it's taken care of. If it's not, then it is our job to constantly follow up. We make phone calls, we stop out, we put door hangs, we do everything we can before we either have our city contractor go clean up the property or send a request for charges to the law director's office and then have to go before the court. When code enforcement brought the additional full-time person on, that goal was for us to not be completely complaint-based. The goal was for us to be more proactive. Last year, we were at 41.6% of our violations were proactive, and this year we are at 54% for January and February. A big part of our job is cleaning up after the homeless. Last year in August, our GIS coordinator said, "You guys are always talking about the amount of trash that you have. We can start tracking that for you." So he went over and did his little computer magic and talked with sanitation. They were willing to start putting all that information in. From August 17th to December 31st, we collected 14,240 pounds of trash, just under city bridges, properties, or utilities. As of this year, we have already collected 6,200 pounds of trash, and we have spent around $1,800 cleaning up homeless camps I did on that packet, and I won't go over those, I included all of the numbers from last year so that you can see what the inspections were, what the violations, and then what the violation type was sent out. So far this year, we've had 108 inspections that have been completed, and 90 violations of those have gone out.
Thank you for all of this information. It's very interesting to see it laid out like this. So if I'm reading it correctly, we responded to 1,646 violations during 2023.
So we completed 1,868 inspections, and out of those, then yes, 1,641 violations went out.
And then, so that when you gave the figure of the proactive inspections, you said 54% of that, or it was 41%?
For January was 41, I'm sorry, for 23, it was 41.6% were proactive inspections. We couldn't do that when we had one full-time, which is myself, and 2 part-time. So it has been very beneficial.
Great. This is really enlightening. We appreciate it. Questions from council members? Councilmember Keener.
Yes. Everybody has this perception that if there's junk out there, it's code enforcement. That's not true. So can you explain the difference between what's police, what's sanitation, and what's code enforcement?
So code enforcement handles from the sidewalk back to the house. So anything on the street, we refer that to the police department. When there's anything from the sidewalk back, code enforcement deals with it. The problem that we run into is when people say, oh, there's trash all over the yard. Well, you get there and they have 45 kids' toys that, to them, that's not trash. So we can't send them a notice unless it is actual interior furniture, if they have totes, anything like that. But if it is a children's toy, or you can not see a speck of their grass. We can't send them a notice unless it is actual rubbish and garbage, not something that is a toy or of use that's meant to be outside. And then for sanitation, that one's a little more, I mean, if everything is gathered in a pile, and sanitation does a great job of going and seeing the bulk pickup and going and picking it up. But if it's all gathered together, I would call sanitation first to make sure, do you have a bulk pickup? And if not, can you send your guy by? They'll let us know if it's not a bulk pickup.
Thank you. Any other council member Ehlers? I know this is your committee. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, so this is now my second term chairing that committee. I would recommend to all city council members and the city administration that if you have time, to find a time to do a ride-along with Erica. It was really enlightening to me I think I've done 2 with her. I did one day where I helped with cleanups under the bridges, and then another one where I drove around with her where she did some inspections. It's very enlightening, and it's always good to see someone doing their job, to know how they do their job. So I would always recommend that to everyone if they have the time.
Yeah, that's a great point, and we appreciate that. Councilmember Teener.
The other thing is too, that, and when they go out to these homeless camps, they just don't go out and just like run them off. They actually also help them, give them resources of what to do. Whether they do it or not, that's up to them, but they do offer resources to these people.
We have Tim Hubble with Lutheran Social Services on speed dial. That poor guy probably gets tired of hearing from us. However, that is what we do. We go out there, we take them as many resources as we can. There have been a lot of churches that have reached out. We have taken them out to the homeless camps as well, just to try to help people get, the items that they need to be able to better themselves, their driver's license, birth certificate, all of those types of things. And we do give them time to collect anything that is theirs. We don't just go take their items. And most times, if they take anything, it's a small little bag and they go.
Well, any further questions? Hearing none, we thank you for this presentation tonight, Director Todd. It's very enlightening, and as Councilmember Ehlers said, encourage everybody to take an opportunity to do a ride-along if they can and find out the information about what code enforcement deals with every day. We appreciate you coming this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move back to the agenda. Petitions and memorials.
There are none.
Permission of voters and taxpayers to address council. At this time, we take an opportunity for voters and taxpayers to address City Council. If you do want the opportunity to address City Council, this is your time. We would ask that you come to the podium, sign your name, address, and the pertinent information on the green clipboard, and you will have your opportunity to address City Council. We ask that you take no more than 5 minutes at that time. So does anybody wish to address City Council this evening?
Jeff, would it be beneficial to remind people about the public hearing?
Yes, I think yes. We are having a public hearing this evening on another matter. It's actually one of the ordinances, that 524, that appears on the agenda. If you just state your name and proceed, please.
My name's Mary Bush. I live here in town, and I'm up here about an issue with a neighbor who has like 30-plus cats that are being a nuisance, causing health issues for everybody else's pets. I keep my dog's poop cleaned up. They should have to clean up their cat poop. My dog almost died because of the cat poop. I think something needs to be done about the people having 30, 40, 50 cats running around the neighborhood. My front yard, I have photos of, it looks like a cat litter box. My grandson can't go out. I can't go out. My puppies can't go out. It's a huge issue, and it's ruining our property, and you can't open your windows because it stinks. They peed on everything in my yard, decorations. I just want some help with something done about this. I don't know what else to do.
Okay. This is an opportunity for you to address us, to allow us to hear what your issue is. We typically do not provide solutions at this point, but we will get with you to help provide whatever resources we can to help address that particular issue. Okay. But thank you for coming and providing the information. Is there anybody else that would like to take this opportunity to address City Council? Seeing none, we'll move on with the additional business. Reports of standing committees.
Finance Committee meeting minutes dated January 22nd, 2024, submitted by Mr. Wolfinger. Economic Development Committee meeting minutes dated January 25th, 2024, submitted by Mrs. Hoop. Water Pollution Control Committee meeting minutes dated January 26, 2024, submitted by Mr. Wing, and Law Committee meeting minutes dated February 5th, 2024, submitted by Mr. Nyheiser.
Go ahead.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion, excuse me, to receive and file the reports of standing committees.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the reports of standing committees. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Reports of special committees.
There are none.
Okay, at this point in the agenda, we are now moving to the public hearing regarding temporary ordinance 524.
An ordinance to amend the zoning map subject to passage of the annexation of 45.1 plus or minus acres in Pleasant Township and to declare an emergency. Coming out of Council of the Whole, sponsored by Mr. Schoonover.
Mr. Schoonover, do you have any introductory comments regarding tonight's public hearing?
Not really. I mean, as far as explaining how this is gonna work, I think it's kind of self-explanatory on the preamble.
Okay. All right. So as stated, this is going to be a public hearing on ordinance temporarily numbered 524. What we do in public hearings is give an opportunity first for proponents who are in favor of the ordinance to come forward I will ask any proponents to come forward. You would sign your name on the silver clipboard and your pertinent information, and then we will hear from the proponents. After all of the proponents have concluded, we will then move to anybody who is opposed to temporary ordinance 524. After that, if there's any rebuttal from the proponents, that would take place, but rebuttal would have to come from somebody who's already spoken in favor of temporary ordinance 524. And then after that, we finally, we would return the floor to the sponsoring council member for any additional comment. So we're going to open this public hearing on temporary ordinance 524 and ask that any proponents of this particular ordinance, which is an annexation, come forward to address council.
Good evening, members of council. My name is David Hodge. I'm a zoning and land use attorney. My address is 8000 Walton Parkway, Suite 260, New Albany, 43054. I'm the attorney and agent for the annexation of this property into the city of Lancaster, also the attorney working through this rezoning process into the city. The property's on the east side of Sheridan Drive, south of Thomas Ewing Junior High. I know it's a property that's long been marketed and been looked at by many developers through the years. It currently is in Pleasant Township and has a zoning designation on it in the township as R3, multi-unit residential. The rezoning that we are requesting in the city of Lancaster is RM to allow multifamily residential development. We have a conceptual site plan that's been submitted to the city. That conceptual site plan shows 288 multifamily residential units at the southern end of the property and currently shows 110 single-family residential lots along the north side of the property, which is up closest to Thomas Ewing Junior High School. There is a traffic impact study that's underway, submitted both to Fairfield County as well as the city engineers here in Lancaster to do some analysis as to existing volume of traffic along the road and as to whether or not any turn lanes would be warranted in and out of the property there on Sheridan. The multifamily that's proposed is a 3-story breezeway. I've got some handouts here if as we go into this, if people want to see, I have a conceptual site plan and some conceptual architecture, but it's 3-story breezeway, typical of other product that you've seen in the marketplace. I know here already in Lancaster some, and certainly over in Columbus and Westerville and New Albany and over where my office is based. Really, we think a great use of the property. A great product. I came in late to a committee meeting but heard some discussion about the fact that there is a need for housing in Lancaster, really a need for housing every place, and really grateful for the opportunity provided to us by the Scholl family, some of whom are here, to work with the city to bring this project forward. I can stop there. Happy to answer any questions or come back and answer questions if there's the need for rebuttal.
Did you say you had a site plan to hand out?
I do.
I'd like to see that.
Sure. It's very conceptual.
I imagine some of the other council members.
I've got one for everybody.
Good.
Thank you. Bear with me just a second. Thank you. So this is the site plan as well as the conceptual architecture.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. See that, Sid?
Are there any additional questions for this speaker? Hearing none, thank you for your presentation. Thank you. Do we have any other proponents for temporary ordinance 524? Hearing none, we will now move to opponents. Is there anybody who opposes temporary ordinance 524? Sir, if you would just sign your name on the silver, and then you can proceed with your comments. Just introduce yourself.
Sure, thank you.
And your ad.
Hello, my name is Jared Lister, and I recently bought a property right there off Sheridan. And these apartments, I think it's about 400 residents are going to be driving right past my house. And it's a bummer, you know, and I get it, you know, people need to live places. So, yeah, my wife wanted me to show up to give a face to y'all of somebody who feels like they're going to be kind of screwed over. So, thanks.
Thank you. Excuse me, sir. Did any of the council members have any questions at this point? Hearing none. Thank you, sir, for coming and voicing your opinions. Sir, if you would just sign the silver clip pad and give us your name and address.
My name is Rick Sugar. I live at 1814 Sheridan Drive. It's right next to this fellow here, I believe. We just bought the property October of last year, well, a year and a half ago, a year and 3 months ago, whatever it is. Dumped a lot of money in it, remodeling it, and now there's going to be a high rise in my backyard. I think it's kind of crappy to just dump. I mean, nobody said anything when we bought the house or offered to buy the house, and now I'm another face of somebody that just totally opposes it. So I have.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else speaking in opposition to temporary ordinance 524?
My name's Julie Moonen. I live at 1850 Sheridan Drive. I'm the last house in a group of four, and beside my house is a thicket, I'll call it, my country word, but an area I've lived there 17 years, and it's just always been a piece of property that kind of goes down a hill, and you can't do much with it. And we've kept the front of the property mowed all those years just so it looks nice. The problem with my property and Sue Larkin, who lives next door to me, is we're on a hill, so there's no way that with these apartments that, to me, I haven't seen the layout, but there's so much, it's vague. We don't know what's going in there. We don't know if it's going to be, he says, you know, three level. Is it going to be low income? Is it going to be, what are we going to have? A housing development with nice homes? Well, that's one thing, but this is pretty broad and pretty open, and you don't know. There's no way we can put any kind of fencing because we'll look right down on it. I think my main objection is I don't know what I'm going to have in my backyard, and I definitely don't know what I'm going to have to the side of my property where I might have a zillion cars driving in and out of there, day, night, whenever. So that's my opposition.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilmember Teener.
So nobody came to you, any of you, and just kind of showed anything to you, didn't tell you what, anything, nothing, they just, and I understand anybody can buy any property they want, do what they want, but.
Sir, but we have to keep, thank you, though.
I didn't have anybody come to my door. I believe a couple of the brothers might have done a walkthrough a while back. I wasn't there. Nothing was left for me. And it was just, I don't know what that was about, but
Okay.
that was back maybe in the fall. I don't remember, maybe in the spring, or in the summer.
Seeing no other questions, thank you for your public comment. Do we have any further individuals here who are in opposition to temporary ordinance 524? Seeing none, we will move back to the proponents. Do we have any rebuttal from proponents of temporary ordinance 524? Mr. Hodge.
Thank you. Again, David Hodge, attorney for the applicant, working with the Scholl family that presently owns the property. As we leave the meeting this evening, we'll certainly share our conceptual site plan with adjacent property owners. I don't know which of the speakers recently purchased the lot that's kind of a floater in the middle of this farm field. I want whichever one of you that is to know that we did notify your realtor in writing to make sure to let you know that this was going on, because we were concerned about this very issue, and I have that I'll share that with you later on. We were certainly concerned about the impact. In terms of the lots that are out along Sheridan Drive, there will be, and you'll see when you see the site plan, there will be a pretty significant buffer behind those lots down to the multifamily residential. You heard me say earlier that the property's planned for both for multifamily residential and single family. The single family component is up along the northern, really 2/3 of the property. And so those single family lots would have single family lots behind them as the property is currently proposed. This is going to be market rate. Don't have any tax credit or subsidy from the government for this. It's a market rate, and my client here is certainly providing workforce housing. All of us know we need that, but their goal is to make money. They're risking a tremendous amount of money to buy this property and to do this development, and so they will get as much rent here as they possibly can, and that's not a bad thing. They're doing what they know how to do, and they're actually providing something that's of great benefit to the community, to provide the housing that we need, and to attract other employment-based opportunities here in the city. I'll stop there, but it's never my aim to dodge any concerned property owner. I've got a long record of engaging directly with folks, and we'll do the same here. And so we can continue this discussion outside of council and beyond that to the extent it's necessary. I'll stop there and answer any questions that anybody on the council has.
Any further questions from council for Attorney Hodge?
I'm looking at this site plan, and if the scale is right, it looks like these lots are only about 30 feet wide.
40.
40 feet wide. Okay, so these are definitely going to be small houses.
These
two
are
stories with a very small footprint.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I do a fair amount of this kind of work, and for production builders, MI Homes, Pulte Homes, DR Horton, and the like, and their houses are their houses, and they have a product of their line of houses, and it's 35, 40 foot wide, and often on 50 or 55 foot lots. These are accommodating a smaller lot than a 55 and 60, no question about it. But that's what we've shown here, limiting that to 110 lots total.
What sort of side yards are you in? I'm an architect.
Yeah.
What sort of side yard clearances are you looking for?
These would have 5 foot side yards.
5 foot?
Yes, sir.
So the maximum width of a house will be only 30 foot then.
Yeah.
Probably
So
a single-car garage.
yeah, the single-family production builder that we've been talking to on this asked us to go forward with 40-foot lots. That doesn't mean that's what it's going to end up being, but, and this is a conceptual site plan. I can tell you one thing, it's going to be limited to no more than 110 lots, because we don't want to trip the warrant to have to do a turn lane out on Sheridan Drive. So we were pretty scientific about how we created that.
Is there any thought given to providing a second way out of this subdivision at the north side, where you're calling it sub-area A? That might really
No.
alleviate some traffic congestion at this point at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, so
Or 7
that-
o'clock in the morning.
Yes, sir. That area up there where sub-area A is written, there is a large drop-off from Sheridan Drive down to the south. At one point, we did have an access point there, but it was going to be, have a switchback in it in order to safely do that, and so we eliminated the access point from there. We do presently show the two access points, and we show a connection between sub-area B and sub-area A that would be an emergency access only, protected by a Knox box or some knockdown bollards, perhaps, so that there are two ways out of this, back out onto Sheridan. And of course, there's a whole thorough review that we undertake with the city engineers and county engineers and everybody else to make sure that emergency vehicles can appropriately route around the buildings, through the drive aisles, through the streets, et cetera. So we'll go through that process in the hereafter.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's a severe housing shortage here in town. I'm just asking some questions as I see it.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Any further questions on, okay, Councilmember Teener.
So these houses that are here that these people live in, are you doing anything to, you said something about a buffer, but I don't think it's ever, are you doing anything to, so it doesn't look like they're just, here's your land, there's ours, whatever, and it looks like it's just one, are you doing anything to block, putting up something to block them from having to?
We are certainly happy to commit to a 6-foot board-on-board fence along the shared property line. However, they would say if they were standing out here, that's not going to do a diddly squat, because there's a topo change. Their lots are way up high there on Sheridan, and this farm field drops way off down to the creek. So we're happy to do it, but I don't know that it would have a significant impact and serve the intended purpose.
Seeing no further questions, thank you for your presentation. I would just remind everybody that we're here on temporary ordinance 524, which is the annexation portion. This project, once it goes through fruition, would be going through a lot of other approval processes. So this is the annexation portion only. Do we have any further opponents who would like to speak, who have spoken previously in rebuttal to temporary ordinance 524? Yeah, sure, ma'am.
I was just handed this, so I'm sorry I haven't had a chance to really look, but one of the concerns that, and again, I don't know how this is going to shake out if it is approved, but as I said, I'm the last house headed toward Thomas Ewing. And anyone that travels that road, I'm very glad we've got the middle school there. I'm a proponent of education, and I understand the need for housing in this town too. But the traffic has probably doubled since Thomas Ewing went in. To go across to get my mail, it's like, you are kind of taking your life in your hands sometimes, because there's a lot of traffic and it moves quickly. I understand if we were in the corporation limits, that would make it within a speed limit. That's nice. But I also know that if you put 100 and some homes down there, and there's going to be, again, I haven't looked at this, there's going to be any kind of exit and entrance into that housing development on West Sheridan, I don't know how you're going to handle the traffic.
Thank you for your comments. Any further rebuttal? Hearing none, we're going to return it to our sponsored council member for any closing comments. Council member Schoonover.
Just I like the discussion, but so we're clear, this is the third reading, but we're also tabling this, so we're not voting on it this evening, so it'll be tabled. I think there's still some other processes that need to happen, so it's not your, that way you know you have time to digest it just as we have, because this is the first time we've seen it as well. So this isn't, the final say tonight. Just I wanted everyone to make sure they knew that.
Thank everybody for their comments. It was a good discussion. I appreciate everybody was very respectful in this process. And I know that when you're speaking about your homes and where you live, that is a passionate thing for people. I do know that Attorney Hodge will speak with anybody who wants to speak about this particular development. Take him at his word, and take a look at those site plans and get into contact with him. With no further comment, we're going to conclude tonight's public hearing on temporary ordinance 524. Thank you all for coming who have attended. We're going to move back into the regular order of business with the reading of resolutions. And now we can move to the third reading of resolution, temporary resolution 324.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation to purchase rock salt for the 2024-2025 winter season, coming out of Public Works, sponsored by Ms. Teener and seconded by Mr. Schoonover.
Councilmember Teener.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 324.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 324. Please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizjack?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Lechtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Nyheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Temporary resolution 324 passes 9-0. I would note that I did not have an opportunity for discussion. Councilmember Teener, would you like to have
And it's
any?
always a pleasure for me to speak to everyone, so hold on. It's just buying rock salt for 24-25.
We thank you for letting us know, and I apologize that I didn't recognize you for further discussion. We're now going to move to temporary resolution 724.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into a local public agency federal local LET project agreement with the State of Ohio Department of Transportation for the Memorial Pierce Walkways Project, PID 120-594, and design pre-construction services contracts with various consultants to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and amend the certificate of appropriations with the county auditor and the LDOT Improvement Fund 3014. Coming out of Code Enforcement and Zoning, sponsored by Mr. Ehlers and seconded by Mrs. Hoop.
Councilmember Ehlers.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion that council pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 7-24.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 724. Councilmember Ehlers.
I think it's pretty self-explanatory in the preamble, so I don't have anything further to add.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizjack?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Lechtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Nyheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Temporary resolution 724 passes 9-0. Temporary resolution 1324.
A resolution authorizing the Lancaster Police Department to apply for the 2024-2025 Drug Use Prevention Grant, coming out of safety, sponsored by Mr. Bizjack and seconded by Mr. Ehlers.
Councilmember Bizjack.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion that council pass and engross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 13-24.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 1324. Councilmember Bizjack.
Thank you, Mr. President. Once again, the preamble is pretty self-explanatory. This drug use prevention grant that the Lancaster Police Department is looking to pursue is mainly used to fund the DARE program here within the city and local schools.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers.
Yes.
Mr. Ailes.
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop.
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Neiheiser.
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover.
Yes.
Ms. Teener.
Yes.
Mr. Wing.
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger.
Temporary Resolution 1324 passes 9-0. We'll now move to second reading of resolutions. Temporary Resolution 1524.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids and enter into contracts for the purchase of chemicals for use by the Division of Water, coming out of Water Pollution Control, sponsored by Mr. Wing and seconded by Mr. Ailes.
Councilmember Wing.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Second of three readings, please.
Second of three readings on Temporary Resolution 1524. Temporary Resolution 1624.
A resolution to authorize the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids and enter into contracts for the purchase of pipe and fittings for use by the Division of Water, coming out of Water Pollution Control, sponsored by Mr. Wing and seconded by Ms. Teener.
Yes, Councilmember Wing.
Thank you, Mr. President. Second of three readings, please.
Second of three readings on Temporary Resolution 1624. Temporary Resolution 1724.
A resolution to amend the Utilities Collection Fund 7006 expense budget and amend the certificate of appropriation with the county auditor, coming out of finance, sponsored by Mr. Schoonover and seconded by Mr. Ayers.
Councilmember Schoonover.
Second of three readings, please.
Second of three readings on Temporary Resolution 1724. Temporary Resolution 1824.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids to construct the Concentrate Discharge Improvements Project, coming out of Water Pollution Control, sponsored by Mr. Wing and seconded by Mr. Ailes.
Councilmember Wing.
Thank you, Mr. President. Second of three readings.
Second of three readings on Temporary Resolution 1824. Temporary Resolution 2124.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and amend the certificate of appropriations with the county auditor in the General Fund 1001, authorize then and now certificates for payment of an invoice for annual codification and declare an emergency. Coming out of finance, sponsored by Mr. Schoonover and seconded by Mr. Ayers.
Councilmember Schoonover.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the suspend its rules and waive the third reading of Temporary Resolution 2124.
Second.
We have motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of Temporary Resolution 2124. Councilmember Schoonover.
Yes, I'm going to apologize now. I get some clarification on this piece. I inherited it from Mr. Wolfinger, and is it just the annual fee for the codified ordinances?
Yeah, and if you, forgot. And if you remember, it was more than it was previously because of the zoning code change. So an increase and to pay the codification expenses. Yes, sir.
Sorry, thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Any further discussion on the motion to suspend? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers.
Yes.
Mr. Ailes.
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop.
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Neiheiser.
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover.
Yes.
Ms. Teener.
Yes.
Mr. Wing.
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger.
Motion to suspend Temporary Resolution 2124 passes 9-0. Councilmember Schoonover.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record Temporary Resolution 2124.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record Temporary Resolution 2124. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers.
Yes.
Mr. Ailes.
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop.
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Neiheiser.
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover.
Yes.
Ms. Teener.
Yes.
Mr. Wing.
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger.
Temporary Resolution 2124 passes 9-0. Temporary Resolution 2424.
A resolution to increase receipts, appropriate from the unencumbered balance, and amend the certificate of other sources and appropriations with the county auditor in the Fire Insurance Escrow Fund 8023, coming out of finance, sponsored by Mr. Schoonover and seconded by Mr. Ailes.
Councilmember Schoonover.
Second of three readings, please.
Second of three readings on Temporary Resolution 2424. We move on to the first reading of resolutions with Temporary Resolution 25-24.
A resolution to amend the 3 Mill Street Improvement Fund 2009 expense budget and amend the certificate of appropriations with the county auditor, coming out of finance, sponsored by Mr. Schoonover and seconded by Mr. Ailes.
Councilmember Schoonover.
First of three readings, please.
first of three readings on temporary resolution 2524, temporary resolution 2624.
A resolution approving the renewal application for replacement of farmland in an agricultural district pursuant to the Ohio Revised Code, Section 929.02, and to declare an emergency. Coming out of law, sponsored by Mr. Nyheiser and seconded by Mr. Bizcheck.
Councilmember Nyheiser.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is first of two readings.
First of two readings on temporary resolution 2624. Temporary resolution 2724.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to settle a claim for property damage with AEP. Coming out of service, sponsored by Mr. Ailes and seconded by Mrs. Hoop.
Councilmember Ailes.
Yes, Mr. President, I move that we suspend council's rules and waive the second and third readings of resolution temporarily number 27-24.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution 2724. Discussion. Councilmember Ailes? No. Hearing no discussion, please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Nyheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Temporary resolution motion to suspend for temporary resolution 2724 passes 9-0. Councilmember Ailes.
Yes, Mr. President, I move that we pass and engross and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily number 27-24.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 2724. Any discussion?
Yes, you've all seen the poles are being replaced all over the east side of Lancaster, and that's what happened. They were replacing poles on Baldwin Drive and hit a gas line, and it was repaired very quickly, and now they're paying for it.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Nyheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Motion to pass temporary resolution 2724 passes 9-0. Temporary resolution 2824.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to accept an H2 Ohio equipment grant and to and to execute contracts as required. Coming out of Water Pollution Control, sponsored by Mr. Wing and seconded by Ms. Teener.
Councilmember Wing.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. First of two readings.
First of two readings on temporary resolution 2824. Temporary resolution 2924.
A resolution to amend the certificate with the county auditor, appropriate from the unencumbered balance, increase receipts, and complete a fund transfer in the wastewater fund 6004 and in the wastewater utility reserve fund 6029. Coming out of Water Pollution Control, sponsored by Mr. Wing and seconded by Mr. Ailes.
Councilmember Wing.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of three readings.
First of three readings on temporary resolution 2924. Temporary resolution 3024.
A resolution to increase receipts, appropriate from the unencumbered balance, and amend the certificate with the county auditor in the wastewater replace and improvement fund 6023. Coming out of Water Pollution Control, sponsored by Mr. Wing and seconded by Ms. Teener.
Councilmember Wing.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of three readings.
First of three readings on temporary resolution 3024. Temporary resolution 3124.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and amend the certificate with the county auditor in the general fund 1001. Oh, sorry. Coming out of finance, sponsored by Mr. Schoonover and seconded by Mr. Ehlers.
Councilmember Schoonover.
First of three readings.
First of three readings on temporary resolution 3124. Temporary resolution 3224.
A resolution to increase estimated revenue in Fund 6027, appropriate from the unencumbered balance, and amend the certificate of other sources and appropriations with the county auditor in the Water Utility Reserve Fund 6027. Coming out of Water Pollution Control, sponsored by Mr. Wing and seconded by Mr. Ailes.
Councilmember Wing.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of two readings.
First of two readings on temporary resolution 3224. Temporary resolution 3324.
A resolution authorizing the issuance of a then and now certificate for the Lancaster Department of Transportation to pay Lancaster utilities and to declare an emergency. Coming out of Public Works, sponsored by Ms. Teener and seconded by Mr. Luchtenberg.
Councilmember Teener.
Mr. President, I would like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution 3324.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution 3324. Councilmember Keener, discussion?
Not this time.
No discussion. Hearing no further discussion, please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Neiheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Motion to suspend temporary resolution 3324 passes 9-0. Councilmember Teener.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 3324.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 3324. Councilmember Teener, discussion?
Yes, we're just paying a bill from the LDOT, as was described by Tim Dietz at our finance meeting.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Neiheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Motion to pass temporary resolution 3324 passes 9-0. Temporary resolution 3424.
A resolution to create a new fund for State of Ohio Community Development Block Grant CARES Act Funds 2085 and to set up revenue and expense accounts. Coming out of finance, sponsored by Mr. Schoonover and seconded by Mr. Ailes.
Councilmember Schoonover.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third readings of temporary resolution 3424.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution 3424. Councilmember Schoonover, discussion?
Yes, we're asking for suspension as this is the Community Development Block Grant CARES Act grant amount in the amount of $336,600 was approved and awarded to the city, and these are the accounts to set that up so we can receive those funds.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Neiheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Motion to suspend temporary resolution 3424 passes 9-0. Councilmember Schoonover.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 3424.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 3424. Any further discussion?
No.
Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Hoop?
Yes.
Sorry, Mrs. Hoop. Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Neiheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Temporary resolution passes. Temporary resolution 3424 passes 9-0. Temporary resolution 3524.
A resolution to increase receipts, appropriate from the unencumbered balance, and amend the certificate of other sources and appropriations with the county auditor in the CDBG-CV State of Ohio CARES Act Fund 2085. Coming out of finance, sponsored by Mr. Schoonover and seconded by Mr. Ehlers.
Councilmember Schoonover.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third readings of temporary resolution 3524.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution 3524. Discussion?
This is just a additional piece to go along with the grant funds. So last one sets up the account, this one takes in the money.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on the motion to suspend? Please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Neiheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Motion to suspend on temporary resolution 3524 passes 9-0. Councilmember Schoonover.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 3524.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 3524. Any further discussion?
No, thanks.
Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Nyheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Temporary resolution 3524 passes 9-0. Temporary resolution 3624.
A resolution authorizing the mayor on behalf of the city of Lancaster, Ohio, to vote on behalf of the city in the Endo International Reorganization bankruptcy case and to declare an emergency, coming out of finance, sponsored by Mr. Schoonover and seconded by Mr. Ailes.
Councilmember Schoonover.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third readings of temporary resolution 3624.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution 3624. Any discussion?
We're asking for suspension because there's a time deadline on this piece to get a signature for this settlement.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, please call the roll on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Nyheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Motion to suspend temporary resolution 3624 passes 9-0. Councilmember Schoonover.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 3624.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 3624. Councilmember Schoonover, any discussion?
Thanks.
Anybody else?
Oh.
I thought you
So
were
I
raising.
was adjusting my glasses.
All right, there we go.
Apologies, Mr. President.
All right, no problem on that. Hearing no further discussion, please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Nyheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Motion to pass, temporary resolution 3624 passes 9-0. We're now going, any further resolutions to come before council this evening? Hearing and seeing none, we will now move on to the reading of ordinances with the third reading of temporary ordinance 524.
An ordinance to amend the zoning map subject to passage of the annexation of 45.1 plus or minus acres in Pleasant Township and to declare an emergency. Coming out of Council of the Whole, sponsored by Mr. Schoonover and seconded by Ms. Teener.
Councilmember Schoonover.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council place upon the table temporary ordinance 524.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to put on the table, a motion to table temporary ordinance 524. Please know this is a non-debatable motion, and therefore we will move to call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Nyheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Motion to table temporary ordinance 524 passes 9-0. Temporary ordinance, we're going to move to second reading, temporary ordinance 824.
An ordinance to amend the City of Lancaster zoning map to change the zoning of 0.99 plus or minus acres identified as Fairfield County Auditor Tax Parcel Numbers 053-506-7300, 053-506-7500, and 053-506-7510 from Central Business District to Service Industrial, coming out of Code Enforcement and Zoning, sponsored by Mr. Ayers and seconded by Mr. Luchtenberg. We have a public hearing on March 11th at 6:30 p.m.
Councilmember Ayers.
The second of three readings.
Second of three readings on temporary ordinance 824. Temporary ordinance 1024.
An ordinance to authorize the mayor to deed approximately 21.746 plus or minus acres owned by the city of Lancaster and further identified as Fairfield County, Ohio, parcel number 053-1800450 for $1 to the Lancaster Port Authority and to execute any and all documents necessary for the transfer thereof and to declare an emergency. Coming out of Economic Development, sponsored by Mrs. Hoop and seconded by Mr. Schoonover.
Councilmember Hoop.
Second of 30 readings.
Second of three readings on temporary ordinance 1024. It appears that there is no first reading of ordinances this evening. Tabled legislation, temporary ordinance 224.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council remove from the table temporary ordinance 224.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to remove from the table temporary ordinance 224. Once again, this is a non-debatable motion, and we would move to call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Neiheisler?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Motion to remove temporary ordinance 224 from the table passes 9-0. Councilmember Schoonover.
I'm making a motion to suspend on this.
I think you need to have a reading.
Yeah,
You have to have a third reading, then
Oh,
because we did have, yeah, okay.
okay. So,
So she's got to read the,
Third reading?
yes.
yeah.
An ordinance to accept a donation of approximately 5.199 plus or minus acres. Excuse me.
That's council of the whole.
Oh, that's it. Sponsored by Council of the Whole. Coming out of Council of the Whole, sponsored by Mr. Schoonover and seconded by Ms. Teener.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary ordinance 224.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass temporary ordinance 224. Councilmember Schoonover, discussion?
I'd like to ask the administration just for the refresher on this piece.
So I'll take that. This is the property that was, we presented to council a couple of weeks ago regarding it's adjacent to Cincy Lake Park, but on the other side of the railroad. The property owner has purchased the section in front and has plans for that, but this property in back could benefit the city looking forward. So it's a small acreage, literally behind Cincy Lake Park, actually literally abuts it right there. And it has no value to the property owner. He wanted to turn it over to the city for future use.
Okay. Do we have any discussion? Councilmember Teen?
Do you have a question? I know it's a donation. Are the taxes paid up on this little sliver of land, or then we'll?
Yeah, well,
Because we've gotten caught in that before where, oops, they forgot to pay taxes.
Before it's actually, there'll be a process before we actually, you're authorizing the acceptance, but it still has to go through the law director to be accepted.
Okay.
Any further discussion on the motion to pass temporary ordinance 224? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Neiheisler?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Motion to pass temporary ordinance 224 passes 9-0. Now move into unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business? Move on to new business. This evening, there is a bill that needs to be approved, which will be for the electronic devices going forward for council. We've accepted the recommendations of the IT department, and there will be Microsoft Surfaces, and we will be able to load everybody's legislation and agendas on those, and also have your Office suite of products, so some folks won't have to continue to utilize a personal device to do their city business. So that is a part of the bill pay this evening. Also in new business, we will be going to council member training on Saturday, March 16th. I know a variety of you have signed up for that. That is sponsored by the Ohio Municipal League. I think it'll be very beneficial, and we look forward to that. Anybody else have any new business? Hearing none, we'll move on to the announcements of scheduled meetings.
February 26th at 6:30 p.m. here in council chambers. March 11th at 6:30 p.m. We will have a public hearing on temporary ordinance 824 on that date. Upcoming special meetings, none. Upcoming committee meetings for the next 30 days. Finance, February 26th at 6 p.m., council chambers. Service, March 1st at 8 a.m., City Hall 1897 Conference Room. Finance, March 11th at 6 p.m., council chambers.
Thank you for those announcements. And we will move on to the reading of bills.
MNCO, $221.70 for publication of legislation. MNCO, $65.59 for the publication of legislation. MNCO, $114.52 for the publication of public hearing. MNCO for $114.52 for the publication of public hearing. Total MNCO is $516.33. PNC, $159.99 to Amazon for printer toner. Amazon $26.99 for printer paper. Amazon $26.30 for file folders and binders. Total of $213.28 for supplies. CDWG for $11,444.07 for 11 Microsoft Surface Go 4 with electronic devices with accessories and warranties.
We have a motion to pay the bills.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion, we pay the bills.
Second.
We have a motion and second to pay bills. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Thank you. There's no need for an executive session. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Lancaster City Council is hereby adjourned. Oh, yes. Please, remain to sign your legislation. Thank you.